Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to walk you through the steps of how to create your first Viator experience and have it approved the first time that you submit it. The first time I submitted a experience to Viator, it was like back, forth. It was ping pong. The way that they were wanting me to fix this and fix that, and I wanted to give up, but I didn't, and I'm glad that I didn't, because working with Viator and generally as a tour operator, as well as with Airbnb experiences, has quite literally changed my life. When I first got started, I was working full-time at a homeless shelter and a health and dental clinic, and now I'm able to run my businesses full-time. I do not operate the tours myself anymore. I have a really wonderful staff of people who help me run the tours, and I kind of sit back in the background, do the marketing, and I travel full-time in my motorhome and have just the best adventures. So if you're ready to start your first experience, or if you are wanting to submit your application and just test out a fun little side hustle, turning your hobby into income, you are in the right place. And if you are a person who's like, I'm following the steps that you're following, but I'm not getting the results that you're getting, that's cool. I understand. Technology be technologying. So check out the description where I actually offer consulting services for tour operators, new business owners, because in addition to submitting this experience, you also need to have the business elements in hand. There are many steps involved in running tours and experiences, including, of course, really running a business. So if you're thinking that you might just submit this and start running tours, I highly recommend that you book the consulting services, because if you do not prepare, you'll be prepared to fail. So let's get started walking through this application process from start to finish, A to Z, and we will get you approved the first time that you submit your experience to Viator. Okay, so really I can only speak to hosting experiences in the United States and US territories, but I assume that the application is very similar, if not the same. But just know that if you want to do this in any other country, then you absolutely can. If you hover over the little Discover button, you can see that they have options for Asia, Australia, Caribbean, the US territories, Europe, North America, South America, all of the Earth. So to get started, all that you need to do is scroll down to the bottom of the page at www.viator.com. Here you're going to see supplier sign up, and just click on this. Here it's going to tell you to get started. So if you've never ever created a Viator account, then go ahead and press this button. If you have at some point, for some reason in the past, created a Viator account, then maybe go through the sign-in process or sign up with a different email. So it very clearly says you're going to create your Viator or TripAdvisor listing. Viator, TripAdvisor, one and the same. 2, you're going to build your products at your own pace. So no one's pressuring you to do this, right? You can do it at your own pace, but I highly recommend just do it from start to finish, because if you're at this point of watching this video, then you're probably ready at least to get started with the application and submit it. You don't have to have done this as an experience in the past, but you do need to know what you're doing, because if you get a single bad review on Viator, I will absolutely tell you that Viator is very strict about their reviews. They care about the customer experience, and so getting too many bad reviews with them is not going to be in your favor, and also people simply are just not going to book your experience if the reviews aren't good. And so course step 3 is to start earning and to stay in control. You can create the tours when you want to do them. When you don't want to do them, it's totally up to you. Okay, cool. So let's assume that we read and reviewed the supplier agreement. Let's go. Let's create our new account. Make sure you obviously use an email that you actually have access to. Early in the game, you really do not need to have a professional email for this. I never encourage my clients to spend money unnecessarily. Just wait until you are really generating revenue. You do get upwards of $5,000 in tax write-offs your first year or 2 of business. Of course, this is not tax advice. Okay, so here we are at the first step to create our new experience. And you can see here where my product submission fee is zeroed out because I'm already an established creator on the platform. So I don't have to pay to create new experiences. You may have to pay the first couple of times, and then after that, it might or should be free. I can't make any promises, obviously. This may also depend on where you live. If there's a need for experiences to be curated there, I do not know. But I can tell you that for me personally, after my first couple of experiences, after that, they were totally free to submit. And this is basically the cost that is associated with having a TripAdvisor customer service agent review your product. So let's go to continue. Page 1 says, let's get started. For you, if your language is English, then obviously pick English or whatever language is necessary, and go ahead and create the title of your product. The title of your product should be short, description, and add some energy. So if you're giving a history tour, don't just say Boston History Tour. If you're giving a snorkeling tour in Puerto Rico, don't just say snorkel in Puerto Rico. Give it some pizzazz, give it some razzle dazzle, add a little bit of fun and personality to it. So for the sake of this example, let's say that we're doing a history tour because those tend to be the most popular depending on the location. For the sake of this example, let's just call this one The Lost History of Sedona. I'm not in Sedona, but I'm a big fan of Sedona. So let's just call it that. So step 2 is your categorization. Is it a tour? Is it an activity? Or is it a transport? Transport meaning you're taking travelers between locations with a focus on transportation that has nothing to do with sightseeing. It's not an activity they're just going to get from point A to point B. Is it an activity where you have an instructed interactive experience, whether that be hands-on, whether that be bicycle, ATV, something that requires interacting with something else? Or is it a tour where possibly people just walk around and listen to the tour guide, go to one or more sites? If it was the Lost History of Sedona, that would be a tour. So let's click the mode of transportation during the tour, which would be walking. And that is it. And let's say how long it takes, which is less than a day. The average tour being 2.5, max 3 hours. Save and continue. For the theme, let's select all that apply, keeping in mind that this is used by Viator or TripAdvisor to categorize your experience, so make sure that you use the one that is most relevant. So history and culture would be the first one, so let's use history. You can add another theme if it is related, so say for instance you would be creating a food tour. If that was the case, you would select food and drink. For the last category, let's select the season, if this is specifically seasonal. So for some people, they shut down in the winter and fall, depending on where you are. Let's say for this one, it's just in the spring. All right, so for photos, you want to include 6+ high quality candid photos that showcase your experience, that will help you attract more travelers. I'm going to go into my wheelhouse of imagery that I have from real experiences that I've really hosted and upload them here to give you some examples of good photos to choose. So let's take a look at this photo, for example, right? So here you do have some people looking at the camera, and that's okay. That is kind of candid and kind of not candid, but they're in a candid moment. And that's kind of what we're looking for there. So you're gonna automatically have to crop the image. This is okay over here, where the dotted line is kind of cutting that bicycle in half, and the people over here are in focus. You can also adjust it, putting this in or out to kind of crop it. This over here would also be okay, where this girl is cut out of the image and it's just these people over here. Probably what you wouldn't want is like this right here, where half her face is in the photo, half his face is in the photo. We probably wouldn't want that. So let's just go with this right here. These are just example photos to give you a general idea. I did actually take these photos on an electric bicycle tour, and I did take them while riding the bicycle. Definitely take safe photos when you're capturing images, but it does make a huge difference for the customer to see really clear action shots of what they might be doing. And again, these people are looking at the camera. It doesn't make it not candid, but it is a candid moment that I happen to capture. All right, let's look at a couple more photos. So this is also a great photo that you could use because it's one person taking a picture of another person who's obviously on a tour. So we would just edit the photo and crop it probably about here to where the most important things are in the image. And we would hit edit next photo. And then for this one, it's just a bunch of women. Maybe there's one guy in there. Standing in front of a bunch of historic buildings. That looks great. So we're basically editing the photo so that we can see everybody's feet, but we don't want to cut off anybody's head. So we check the heads, we check the feet. Great, save. So you get the gist of what you're looking for there. If you do not have any photos of you doing the thing, again, this is one of those things where I have 100 tips and suggestions when I actually do consulting with people, but to just spend a lot of time talking about images would not be conducive for everybody. So before you go on to the next step, make sure that you do caption your photos because you can see this caption as a customer whenever you're looking through images, which people are absolutely going to do. So if it says, it doesn't need to be descriptive like an alt text. An alt text describes what is going on in the photo. This would be more like great for friends, like great activity for friends, free for children under 6, fun for all ages, things to do in Houston, whatever is related to your experience, then you want to go ahead and identify that under the photo. From here, you just clicked save and continue. Step 2 of 5 is your product content. Describe your product's unique features. This includes things like the itinerary, duration, and language. How do you meet your travelers? So you will pick up the travelers. You will pick up the travelers or meet them at a point. That gives you 2 options. But let's, for this example, assume that the travelers are meeting us at the location. Let's tell them the location. For the sake of this, let's just say Sedona in general. This is really important here. Please only include information about how to find the meeting point. Absolutely include information about parking. Suggest that they arrive 10 to 15 minutes early. Give them a couple of options for parking, including a paid parking lot, free parking, or a parking garage. And then also let them know how they can find the person that they're looking for. If you're meeting them at a welcome center, say your host will meet you at the welcome center. If you're like me, I have had people ask me before, how will I know who I'm looking for? And I basically have a variety of different tour guides. So I say, don't worry about looking for a specific person. Once you get there, they'll be looking for you. You can also add a meeting point if your experience has multiple starting points. So that would be in an example where, say, on Tuesdays and Fridays, you meet at one location. On Sundays and Wednesdays, you meet at a different location. I have used that, and it was quite confusing for the customers. So just know that that is an option, and you do need to specify in the notes Tuesday, Wednesday at this location, or Friday and Thursday at this location. Otherwise, if you can, just pick one location. And it's going to ask you if the tour meets back at the starting point. If it does, say yes. If it doesn't, say no. And if it doesn't, then say, this is the point that it ends, and add a different meeting point if you have a different starting point. Just be really inclusive in all of the information that you provide to make sure that people know as much information. Some people will actually look up how far it is from the ending point to the parking garage because they're not comfortable walking around in the evening by themselves or with their family, or like a variety of different reasons. Having done thousands of tours, I've just seen so many things. And as a nomad and RV lifer, honestly, I don't think about things like that personally. So just be aware that there are things that you may not even think about that other people are considering when booking your experience. So go ahead and include the total time for a walking air history tour. It would be about 2 hours, no more than 2.5, possibly 3, depending on the situation. And then this is the part where it gets tricky. This is the part where the most amount of people end up getting their experience sent back to them, which can be really time consuming depending on the situation. So add the attraction. Where are you going? Why are you going there? How long will you be there? So if you say that the tour takes 2 hours and 30 minutes, you need to, and each stop is 30 minutes long, you need to include 5 different stops under your attractions, or Viator will send it back to you. If you say, oh, well, I need 10 minutes to give them an introduction, or I'm going to wait 5 minutes, that's okay. Don't worry about that. Just create as many attractions. And even if it's like, you're only going to be there for 15, but you need to fill in the gaps, then just go ahead and say 30, because walking from one point to another is not really included in the tour time. Just know that it's included in the time that it takes you to actually run the tour. Yes, I'm done adding all the attractions. Do you offer in-person, audio, or written guides? Yes. Are your guides official or independent? Let's just say official. In person, English. No, no one is driving. What is included is going to be on a history tour. It's just going to be information. So I would probably select other, and I would say a 2.5 hour historic tour, or a 2-hour walking tour with a professional guide, something like that. If it was a food tour, then I would say lunch, and then I would say under description, 5 stops for food and drink in Boston, or 6 stops in Portland, Oregon for lunch, whatever is necessary for your experience. Under exclusions, I always include fees such as parking fees, food, and other. I also list gratuity, because we want people to know that their gratuity is not included, and yes, we want people to tip. So for the sake of this, let's just say food and drink and dinner. Okay, so this is really important, because this is what the customer is going to see whenever they decide if they want to book your experience. And I'm just going to kind of throw something up off the top of my head, because it says, encourage your travelers to book your experience by providing an accurate and exciting description. It should be written in English, be consistent. If you describe your experience as a tour, stay with that. Write in short sentences. It helps it translate it for you. Don't reuse content found in other sections. So this you really want to be creative about. So let's say I really was going to create a tour about the lost history of Sedona. Enjoy a historic walking tour in downtown Sedona. Learn about the lost history of one of the nation's most beautiful towns. In a small group setting, explore the region with a tour guide and learn about history lost for multiple generations, or something like that. The lost remains of the Conestoga tribe at the burial site of the, clan of this or whatever of that. Use really flavorful, colorful language that makes people feel excited, and then also leave a little bit of mystery. So next, you're going to enter the maximum number of travelers who can participate. This is going to be a little tricky, because you don't want it to be overwhelming. You don't want it to be underwhelming. If you have more than one tour guide that can run the tour at once, then I might aim for a higher number. On average, I would say that people seem to feel comfortable with somewhere around 14. 14 seems to be a magic number. And I tend to tell people to always use an even number, because people generally do things in 2s, rarely in 3s, sometimes in 4s. So try to make the number of people that you can host an even number. Otherwise, if you can host the same experience at the same time with 2 different tour guides, then maybe you can break your group up into 2 groups of 16 or something like that. And then you can say 32. But keep in mind that people can see this number. And I've actually had someone on another platform look on TripAdvisor to see how many people I could host. And then when there was more people than what it said here on this number, they were really upset and wanted to leave the tour, because they were surprised at how many people there were, not understanding that we would break the group up into 2 groups. So You just got to take it. You got to take it with a grain of salt. Another thing I would mention about the description is that I like to throw in there that gift cards are available because as you become a real business, really hosting tours and experiences, you want to sell gift cards for birthdays and holidays and special occasions, including Mother's Day, Father's Day, birthdays, whatever. You also want to say that private groups are available. If someone is looking online for a private experience, you do want to get to the point where you're able to host colleges, universities, hospitals, and corporate groups. We've hosted many of them, all the way up into the hundreds of people. So we're currently looking at hosting our first group of, I believe there was going to be about 250 to 300. So it's really important to be mindful when you're answering questions about accessibility in terms of wheelchairs, strollers, service animals, infants, and if they can easily depart or arrive via public transportation. So I will not answer any of these questions for this example because I don't want to steer you one way or the other. Generally speaking, I tend to say not recommended for pregnant travelers, individuals with back problems or heart problems. And again, you got to assess, again, you should really assess your specific situation and decide what sort of customer and audience you're looking for. If we were doing a historic tour of Sedona, that would be later labeled easy. However, keep in mind that walking is not simple or easy for all people, so that you may run into situations where people find walking to be challenging. I absolutely ran into a situation where a lady showed up and she didn't realize it was a walking tour, even though it's described as a walking tour. She got about 10 to 15 steps and she decided to tap out. And then along with the rest of her whole family. So you are going to run into a lot of interesting situations as a tour operator dealing with tourists and people who are traveling. So for phone number, just enter your phone number. Generally, you want to price your project by person, but certainly per group may sometimes be required. For adults, you want to use the ages of 18 to 64, generally speaking. For infant, you want to use the age of 1 to 5. For child, generally about 6 to 12. And for youth, 13 to 17. And for senior, approximately retirement age 2 plus. Yes, children should be accompanied by at least one adult or one senior. And this is the maximum amount of travelers per booking that can be selected in one group. So for this instance, let's say 15. This is asking you when you want your calendar to start. So if today is January the 4th, 2025, because it is, and I want to start ASAP, I want to start selling tickets as soon as I'm approved, then select the same day. If you know that you're not going to be quite ready and it's not ready until maybe it's like a snorkeling activity in Virginia or something, then maybe go out into the future when it's going to be appropriate for the weather. And of course, select an end date if you have an end date in mind. I personally don't use an end date. I just let the end date stay open, and that kind of helps to get more future bookings. Next, it is asking you about the relative start time of your experience. So that could be during opening hours, meaning like I'm open 9 to 5. That could be the start time, meaning that it starts like right at 9, right at 4, or right at 6. Or maybe coordinated times, meaning that your experience could begin at any time during the time period, but you coordinate the specific time with travelers. So that could be a lot of different things. So like maybe it's like a volcano tour in Hawaii or something like that, and you're open from 9 to 5, and you coordinate the time with them based on when you want the tour to leave. It could be a variety of things, but for the sake of a history tour, let's just use the start time. That's the simplest option to go with. Adding your prices with TripAdvisor and Viator is very easy. They do communicate that they charge a minimum 22% commission rate. If you decide to sign up for Accelerator after your experience is approved, then your commission rate will go up, but also so will your exposure. So keep that in mind. However, for the sake of this example, we're going to say $100 for an adult minus 22% is $78 per person. For infants, you can lower the price to whatever you want it to be. And same thing for children. I'm just going to enter a variety of different numbers here so you can get an idea of what the pricing would look like. Select all that apply. If it's Tuesday, Monday, Friday, and Saturday, then click that and enter the start time of your experience. For the sake of this history tour, let's just say 10 o'clock. When you actually get approved by Viator for your experience, you can go back in and you can say on Tuesdays, we only do it at 10. On Saturdays, we only do it at 5. Whatever that looks like for you and your experience, then you can do that there. I'm going to hit save. If you book my consulting services from the link in the description, you will find that I highly recommend booking on multiple platforms. These cutoff time for your tour could be when you're sold out, which means you might manually have to go in and say it is sold out, or it could be that you can accept people up into the very last minute. So in general, for my tours, we only stop selling tickets when it's sold out or at least 1 hour prior. So I would just say 1 hour. And when people book, they get instant confirmation. The other option would be instant confirmation, then becomes manual or manual confirmation, which means you or someone else has to go in and approve it. The standard cancellation policy for Viator is going to be 24 hours before the experience start time. In the local time zone, no refunds will be given after that period. Although you got to keep in mind that if a customer doesn't show up for their experience and then they go to their credit card company and dispute the charge, Viator will then take all of the funds from you immediately to refund the customer, and then you must submit information to cancel that dispute. It's a whole thing. It's a pain in the butt, but people do it. So I would say standard would be a good option, or also sales are final regardless of cancellation status is a little extreme. So I don't do that, but I want people to be able to be on the experience if they want to be there. On the topic of canceling experiences, you can cancel a tour or experience of a customer's if any of these two things apply. The weather would affect the ability for you to host the experience, or maybe you don't have enough travelers. If you really need about 4 or 5 or 6 and you only have 2, then you can cancel. However, keep in mind that it doesn't matter for what reason you cancel your experience with Viator, you are going to be subject to the product quality level, and you'll be able to see in your account how many times you've canceled over a period of 90 days, and you may be in the green, yellow, or the red. And if you get too far into the red because you've canceled too many bookings over a period of time, then your experience can be removed from the platform. Next is going to be customer information, asking what sort of information they need from the customer. Phone number is going to be necessary in order for you to contact them if they are late, which they oftentimes are. And then the lead traveler's name so that you know who to get in contact with. You could also ask for any other relevant information depending on the type of experience that you're hosting. The only time that you should need flight information, train information, or ship information is if you're doing something that requires you to pick up the customer and transport them from one place to another. Here, Viator is letting you know that they recommend that you do a mobile ticket, do not require people to print out tickets, and then also that you should only really need to have one ticket per booking. Let one person have the one ticket. Don't overcomplicate it. Say, for instance, you were selling tickets to go snowboarding in Aspen or Breckenridge or Pagosa Springs or something like that, and they need to take their ticket to a ticket booth and exchange it for a ticket. Then you might say that they'll have to exchange their ticket for a direct entry ticket. But otherwise, if you're doing a history tour, walking tour, food tour, snorkeling experience, bicycle tour, or any other type of experience, generally just whatever ticket they get from Viator should be good enough. This here is really important because people are going to want to know what sort of information they need upon arrival. This is your opportunity to tell them as much as possible in terms of like where to go, which is going to reduce the amount of phone calls of confused people that you get. If you put your mouse over this fake ticket and start going down and up, you can get an example of what the customer is going to receive after booking your experience. Hit save and continue. If you want to get your experience up and running faster, you can offer an intro offer. That is simply just another discount for the customer that does not include the additional compensation rate taken by Viator. So you have to keep that in mind. You don't want to be losing money on your experience, and your offers can go as low as 2, 3, 4, 5%, or as high as 50, 60, 70%. You could offer an experience at $100 per person, and then you could offer an intro offer 50% off, but that still is not going to include the additional 22% that Viator is going to take. And so just keep in mind, if you decide, okay, well, I'm going to increase the price to $200 per person, take 50% off, and then take the additional 22% from Viator, then after your intro offer is over, you're still going to have to leave the prices at the $200 per person rate for a set period of time before you can lower the prices again. That is Viator's rule. I don't know why, I don't know how, but that's how it works. So don't try to be slick and think that you can increase the prices and then take 50% off so that you can still get the price that you want, because there are rules that are in place. And so you're going to have to leave those prices like that for the next 30 days. So after 30 days, you could lower the price, but you might not get any bookings. If the price is $200, then people might not want to book it if it's not actually worth $200. Okay, so on the last page, it looks like this, and it says submit your product for review. You are almost done. Congrats. For me, I'm eligible for a free product submission. I'm not actually going to submit this because Viator would be like, what the heck are you doing, girl? But you guys know this was just an example. So what happens next? No changes are needed. They'll publish your product listing within 48 hours. If there are areas of improvement, then someone from Viator is going to reach out to you via email, or they might call you and try to help you get things moved around. They will give you the opportunity to make any changes, but really you don't want to have to go back and forth. If you do have to make a change, you're going to have to submit it back to them, and then they are going to take a couple more days to review what you sent. And if it's still not right, guess what? They're going to send it back to you again. So do yourself a favor, just book the consulting session at the description below so that I can help you make your submission correctly the first time and get you off and running to the races. So hopefully you found this walkthrough helpful. If so, please give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment letting me know what sort of experiences you're excited to offer to your customers, and I hope to see you in the future.